The following program contains disturbing materials that may not be suitable for some resellers. Viewer discretion is advised.
I have a huge problem with other resellers who treat resellers in a nasty way. And what do I mean? Well, it's the resellers that buy on eBay, they have their own stores, and they tend to leave just nasty feedback for other sellers. And it's not just one negative, because I've left a negative over the last year for a reseller that deserved it. But I'm talking about just the smallest things, like uh, maybe the terms and conditions they didn't agree to, but yet they bought the item. Maybe they're being really nitpicky with the seller that they're dealing with, and it could have been worked out maybe via an email, that type of thing, or a message, yet they resort to leaving just nasty feedback. And as a reseller themselves on the platform, they really should know better. And case in point, and the reason why I'm making this video is because this happened to me today. Now, I didn't get a negative feedback from this person, but I avoided a negative feedback from this person. I'm almost certain that's the case, because this person sent me a message and they had offered me, anyone out there remember that Ford football helmet that I had sitting behind me on the lives that I eventually listed? I still have up for sale. Well, I ended up getting an offer today for the person actually didn't send an offer, they sent me a message. And this particular person said, hey, interested in your helmet, would you take 75? So I'm looking at it and I figure, you know what, I'm only into it for 10 bucks. It's sitting on a shelf, ready to be sold, time to move on from it. It wasn't as hot of an item. Maybe people didn't like it as much as I did, and I thought it would have been gone a long time ago. So I said, you know what, I replied back, I said, yes, I'll take 75. And I even sent them an offer through the message. And I ended up getting a reply back saying that this helmet isn't as you described it. It's actually a youth football helmet, and it's not a large adult football helmet. And then they put on the bottom, would you take 50? So my disappointment in myself, for one, because normally I do check the feedback for others, as we've discussed on previous videos, left for others from the buyer that is potentially going to buy my item, and I failed to do that when I sent this $75 offer. So when this buyer comes back with a message saying that this item isn't as what you've described it in the listing, and then they still want it, but they're trying to get me to go even lower at 50, well, now I start doing some looking. Who am I dealing with here? Because this is kind of sketchy behavior as far as I'm concerned. Either you want it or you don't, and if you want it, it's still worth 75. And I wasn't going to go under 75, but my gut told me to look. So I did. And this person, it turns out, if you look at their feedback, they have feedback received as a seller, and they have tons of feedback left for sellers. And so, they have a store, and they have like 600 items, and only 32 sold in 90 days with that 600 items, but that's not important. Upon checking out the feedback left for others, it looked like Christmas, guys. It was a lot of green with a lot of red sprinkled in there. And we're talking page 1, page 2, page 3, and I'm like, wow. And you're looking at some of this feedback left for others, and we're talking like nitpicky stuff, guys. Stuff that eBay should have removed this negative feedback, because to say seller charged me way too much to ship this item, and it's like, wait, you agreed in the terms and conditions of the sale to pay that much for shipping. You can't come back and go into someone's negative feedback and ding it on the seller because you're not happy with what you paid for shipping. That just shouldn't be allowed. And maybe it's just the seller didn't try to fight it. But nowadays with eBay, it's harder and harder to get feedback removed, even like legitimate feedback removed. And guys, that's just bad. And to do this not once, not twice, not 5 times, not even a dozen times, there's like 20 times, that's no bueno. And that's a red flag. And I charge what eBay says the label is for shipping based on the weight and the size of the item. I am not going to take a risk to sell this item to someone who is already, before the transaction even happens, is trying to tell me that it's an INAD anyway. Maybe I would have come back and said, hey, 60 bucks, it's yours. Let's just move on from it and be done with it. But that would have been for any normal person. This person's not normal, and I will gladly walk away from a sale to protect my account health and or protect the chance of me having to deal with someone who's just not a good person. And that's a big thing for me, guys. If you're a reseller on this platform, understand that as a reseller, we have a lot of things to deal with. We have to already deal with buyers who don't know better. But to deal with a seller that should know better, I've got a problem with that. And like I said, I've left one negative feedback in the last month, and you guys know the story behind that. I ordered a paper tape machine for like 450 bucks, and what I received was not the same machine that was received or shown in the listing. And when I sent a message to the buyer to say, hey, what's going on here, because the thing didn't work, and I didn't open up a return just yet. It didn't work, and it wasn't complete. Didn't have the water tank cap to the machine as shown in the listing. They came back and said, well, they packed it perfectly, because it was not. They had like 3 pieces of bubble wrap, and I'm not going to exaggerate here. It had 1 packing peanut in the box. They said that they had used packing peanuts, and they had wrapped this thing up, multiple layers of bubble wrap, and they packed it perfectly. And they tried to blame it on the post office, even though it came from the other side of town. I'm in Vegas. They're on the south side of Vegas. And it got here in 2 days from after they shipped it. And they're trying to say that somehow the post office did that and not them. And I got to tell you, if the post office was to do something like that, open the package and unravel it, dump out all the packing peanuts, it would have taken maybe an extra day or 2 for them to get it to me. So that was the first red flag. That buyer was lying. They started to accuse me of breaking the item, even though it arrived to me broken. You guys saw it when I opened it on the live. I wanted to show you my new machine. I was so excited. And that turned into kind of a nasty back and forth, and the buyer being accusatory, this, that, and the other thing at me, like if I did something wrong. And so I opened the return, and I also left a negative feedback explaining that this seller is just off the rails and was a totally bad transaction. And I absolutely hate to leave negative feedback for people unless it's absolutely warranted. To leave a negative feedback for a seller because you're not happy with the shipping charge that you paid, that you agreed to up front, shame on you. To leave a negative feedback without first contacting the seller to try to figure out what happened so you can avoid leaving a negative feedback, and that seller contacts you back and replies back to you in a timely manner, and you still leave a negative feedback, shame on you. As sellers, we have to understand we want to avoid as many negatives as we can. And because I'd like to think that as a community, we're in this thing together, and while you may be in the habit of leaving negatives because you just feel like it makes you feel better about who you are, I guess. I mean, it can't make you feel like a good person, can it? But you decide to just be nasty to other resellers. Well, karma's the thing, guys, and you know, you may not have any negatives right now, but I really think, just like we tell you to hit the like button on the lives, I think that when you start leaving negatives for people, and you could have been a better person and either just shrug your shoulders and said, you know what, it's tough to be a reseller, I'm just going to move on, I agreed to pay this shipping, don't know why I would take it out on this reseller, I'm just going to own it because I agreed to it, and walk away. Or you could be nasty and leave just a ridiculous feedback, and it doesn't do you any good anyway. It just hurts someone else. And my mentality is I like to see sellers succeed. We have a lot of products on this platform, guys. We have a lot of problems as sellers to deal with on this platform already. We don't need to be beating each other up over really small things and leaving negative feedback. And to me, I'm glad I declined this transaction. I wish I would have done my homework before I made the first offer, but that's my bad on that. And I'm really, really glad my sixth sense kicked in and I avoided, I'm certain that I would have received a negative feedback for something from this particular seller slash buyer. And have you guys had a horror story selling to another seller and it just went wrong? I want to know about that down below. Sometimes you're going to deal with people who really don't care about the community. They just don't. And they just care about themselves and what they want, and the low ball offers that they want you to accept, and the low shipping that they want you to agree to. And if things don't go their way, they're going to be nasty about it, and that's just part of the business, I guess. But figuring all that out and overcoming it is yet another example of how flipping ain't easy. And I want you to check out one of these videos that I think you're going to like. And until next time, have a great rest of your day. Take care, everyone.